The Cleveland Browns are now the favorites to win the AFC North. So does this mean that times have truly changed in this division? Are the Browns the new kings of the North? Hey, what's up, guys? Quincy Carrier back at it again, making another video. And this week, I'm going to be talking about the Browns free agency move. We're going to go through every single transaction and rank them. Of course, by every single transaction, I mean every single transaction that you guys care about. I'm not going to do a 30-minute breakdown about the re-signing of Philip Gaines. Now, the Browns went into this free agency with a sense of urgency, which I felt like was the right move. I mean, you have Baker Mayfield entering the second year of his rookie deal. You have Myles Garrett in the third year of his rookie deal. You have some very core players to this young core that are going to be coming up for deals soon that are going to limit your ability to take care of things in free agency. Also, you had a ton of cap space available to you, and you had a ton of draft picks that you weren't going to use. I think the Browns entered this offseason with 10 draft picks available to them, and you knew that this Browns team, as currently constructed, was not going to add and keep 10 new players via the draft. So you knew something was going to happen there in terms of the Browns. And boy, did something happen all right. John Dorsey, after completely overhauling the roster last year, decided that he wasn't done yet and that it was time to go to really contend, and brought in way more talent. And we're going to start with one of the lesser names, in tight end Demetrius Harris. Now, Demetrius Harris pretty much replaces Darren Fells, who they let go earlier in free agency. They're both 6'7". Demetrius Harris used to be a former basketball player at UW Milwaukee, I believe. He is a he's a lanky, athletic guy, a good end zone target, much in the same way that they use Darren Fells. Now, is he going to be the blocker that Darren Fells was? That's remained to be seen, but pretty much he's going to take that spot that Darren Fells had. Now, what this says for a guy like Seth the Valve isn't good. I'm starting to be concerned if Seth the Valve is going to make it through training camp on this team, or even make it to training camp, as it seems like the Browns don't really have plans to feature him in any significant way. The second signing is Sheldon Richardson, defensive tackle from Minnesota, I believe, but we all know him from his days with the Jets, where he was a dominant force. Now, he's had some character issues in the past with the Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings, that he has found a way to kind of grow from those past issues, and that he's ready to mature. So if Sheldon Richardson can be just half of what he was with the Jets, that's a major win for the Browns. If he can be what his potential, if he can be who he was with the Jets, and remind you, Sheldon Richardson's only 28 years old, so that possibility is not that far off. The results can be really positive for the Browns. This is a guy who can fill the hole inside. I said it all last year that the Browns' number one issue defensively was they had no meat up the middle. You only had Trayvon Coley and Larry Ogunjobi. And Larry Ogunjobi is not the biggest guy in the world. He's more of a pass rushing defensive tackle. Now you put next to him a big, stout, run stopping type of guy in Sheldon Richardson, and you kind of secure that middle, and you can have a rotation with him and Carl Davis to stop runs on obvious run downs. Now, again, this all determines on the defensive players on the second level, if they can do their job, and Joe Schobert, who kind of led the league in missed tackles while he's great in other areas. If he can just step it up there, then you have a team that's going to be a really good run defense. The Browns also, of course, signed Kareem Hunt. That's going to be a tremendous addition. He only got a 8-game suspension. And come week 9, that's going to be a guy who is going to shake things up a little bit for teams that have to play the Browns. Nick Chubb, I already feel like is going to be a load to handle on his own. Now, when you can replace him with a Kareem Hunt who has fresh legs, that's going to be kind of a headache for defensive coordinators. to think of. The Browns also re-signed Greg Robinson, which I felt like was a very smart thing because Greg Robinson did play really well at the end of the year. You're going to get a left tackle for reasonable money, and he's going to be able to hold it down for another year while you can look for your options in the draft, or you can decide if you want to re-sign Greg Robinson long term. Now let's get to the big trade that happened. First, we're going to talk about Olivier Vernon, who got traded to the Browns. He had 7 sacks in 11 games last year, was ranked 13th best edge rusher on Pro Football Focus. I think Myles Garrett was ranked 7th on their little grading system. So you get a guy who is a quality defensive end at the very least. He was a Pro Bowler earlier in his career. Now he's 28 years old, so he's in that youngish kind of prime age. And he's going to pretty much take the spot of Emmanuel Ogbah. Now, when talking about the Browns offseason this year, you're going to have to keep in mind that they have 2 players that they're pretty obviously going to trade still on their roster at the moment. They have Emmanuel Ogbah and they have Duke Johnson. I don't see them on the team past May. I think they're going to get dealt for draft picks, which are going to get bundled with something else. But I just don't see those 2 guys being on the team because they just don't serve a purpose on the team anymore. Especially with Kareem Hunt's suspension only being 8 games, it looks like Duke doesn't really have a place here in Cleveland, unfortunately, because I like Duke and, I'm going to miss the Duke champ. Of course, the biggest news of free agency, the biggest acquisition of free agency, the Browns traded for Odell Beckham in a deal which I think is just complete highway robbery, where the Browns only had to give up 1 first-round pick, the 17th pick overall, Jabril Peppers, and a 3rd rounder to bring home one of the best wide receivers in the league. Now let's talk about the notable names that the Browns had to get rid of in order to make some of these moves happen. And you'll notice that the names listed here are guys who, if they were on injury reports in the middle of the season as out, it wouldn't be that big of an impact last year. So Jamie Collins out. So you're not going to have Jamie Collins anymore, to the relief of some. Jamie Collins certainly did disappoint a little at the end. I don't think he disappointed as much as some people make it out to be. I felt like he had some solid moments, but I feel like Jamie Collins is one of those guys where he can do so much that when he doesn't give all of his effort, it's so obvious, and you just can't have room for that anymore, especially at the cap number that he was going to be at. So Jabril Peppers, obviously, they had to give up Jabril in the trade. Probably the best player of the bunch that they're giving up. Good young player. Going to be a solid, strong safety. Is he a Pro Bowler? I would say he has the potential to make 1 or 2 Pro Bowls in his career. I don't think he's a perennial first or second team All-Pro type of player. He's kind of a guy that if you have a lot of depth in your secondary, you can really find a lot of good use for him because of his ability to be a hybrid player. But that said, Jabril Peppers is going to hurt a little bit. And Darren Fells, who they replaced with Demetrius Harris, is out. Now, with losing Jabril, let's talk about how that affects this defense. And I think what John Dorsey is thinking is that with the addition of Olivier Vernon and Sheldon Richardson and the ability to get pressure with that front 4, a lot more than you got last year, just taking out Emmanuel Ogbah and Trevon Coley, that it's going to lessen the importance of your strong safety. That it's going to make whoever that player is a lot less important, especially since you have a top flight corner in Denzel Ward, solid number 2 in Terrence Mitchell, good depth with the other guys on that secondary, and you also have the added benefit of having a really good free safety in Demarius Randall, who they need to lock up to a long-term deal soon. But since they have that, whoever they put at strong safety isn't going to matter as much. And, with that philosophy, you got to look at teams like the Denver Broncos, who had Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware on each side, and they were able to get away with guys like Raheem Moore playing safety for them. for a little while. So pretty much what the Browns are hoping is that you get enough pass rush that it doesn't matter as much who your strong safety is. And even if it does matter, you have a good free safety, which kind of covers up some of the holes in the secondary as far as getting beat over top. And part of me wonders if they're going to use different type of packages to kind of get Joe Schobert to be more out in coverage and taking a little bit of that strong safety role as far as covering tight ends went, since he is so athletic and he's able to cover pretty well, but he struggles in run defense, and be able to kind of rotate like that in order to kind of make up for not having Jabril. But either way, losing Jabril Peppers doesn't hurt because you brought in a guy like Olivier Vernon. If he stays healthy, who's going to be able to get the quarterback? You got Myles Garrett on the other side. You got Sheldon Richardson, and you have Larry Ogunjobi. That is a fearsome four on that front line. So you're going to be solid there. Now, if you look at this offense, which has been what most people are talking about, man, I mean, the formations you could run out that would just boggle the mind of a lot of defensive coordinators are many. I mean, look at something as silly as that wishbone that the Browns were running out in the middle of the year last year. Now you have the option of having after week 9, you got Kareem Hunt on one side, you could have Nick Chubb on the other side. You can have on the edges as your 2 wide receivers, Odell and Jarvis Landry. You could have David Njoku as the tight end, and you can either run or pass with that, because one of the underrated things about Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, that they're pretty good blocking wide receivers. So their ability to do that gives you more flexibility in those kind of packages where you would have 1 or 2 wide receivers to make it less obvious that it's just going to be a run or a pass. So they really do a lot of that for your offense. The run versus pass prediction for these defenses, I don't know how they're going to do it. What's the defense going to do? Are they going to commit to the run to stop Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb? Then they're just going to throw the ball to Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham. And oh, by the way, we have Rashard Higgins, who I feel like is going to be one of the most dependable third down guys in the NFL next year. And you have a guy in Antonio Callaway who can burn anybody just waiting to get the ball. Also, what Odell brings you, obviously, other than his game-changing ability as a wide receiver, is he is now a consistent and reliable deep threat. The Browns last year, their deep threats were Brashard Perriman and Antonio Callaway. 2 guys who have a lot of potential, but when you throw the ball deep to them, you kind of wonder if they're going to catch the ball all the time. Antonio Callaway had a bad case of the dropsies early in the season last year. Up till the end of the season, he kind of tightened it up in the last few weeks. But Brashard Perriman, I mean, his whole career was a bad case of the dropsies until he got to Cleveland. So now you have a guy in Odell who, if you throw the ball deep to him and it's anywhere near him, I mean, you have the utmost confidence that you're going to have that ball come down with. You have options galore for Baker Mayfield. Almost option overload. I hope it doesn't slow him down in the pocket because he has too many options to look at. But, and the important thing is that Todd Monken, the new offensive coordinator for the Browns, is going to be bringing in his air raid style offense to go with Freddie Kitchens' kind of carefree, reckless style. And that is going to be really creative, is going to be really interesting. I guarantee you that the Browns and Todd Monken and Freddie Kitchens are going to introduce some things that are new and haven't been seen before on the NFL level, because of their ability to have so much Pro Bowl talent on the field. Also with bringing in Odell and adding that depth to the wide receiver position, you're going to be able to go 4, 5 wide receivers deep. You're going to be able to line out, and you're going to be able to put Njoku out there and have him line up as a wide receiver. You're going to have options galore when Kareem Hunt comes back. Kareem Hunt's a guy who can line up on the line of scrimmage and run a route like a receiver, much like Duke Johnson on a more explosive level. So there is a ton of just different things because of how versatile the skill sets and how young these players are and how talented Baker Mayfield is, that Todd Monken can do with the ball. Now, the one thing that has been a criticism of Todd Monken is that he doesn't run the ball. And we're going to really see how true that is this year, because I think this is a Browns team that's going to be able to take a lot of leads early on in games, and going to have no excuse not to run the ball. You got Nick Chubb, you got Kareem Hunt. Either way, I think the Browns' future is incredibly bright. And as a Browns fan to other Browns fans, how nice is it to finally have a team that people are scared to play? People aren't ready to play Cleveland. They want to be able to have a bye week before they play Cleveland to think of how they're going to stop this team. And if they back that up come September, this team's going to be a very dangerous one. If they can get this chemistry down, if they can meld as a group, if they can put it all together, this is one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, period. Up and down. That's why the Browns look like they're going to be the new kings of the AFC North, with Antonio Brown being shipped out of Pittsburgh, with Le'Veon Bell being shipped out of Pittsburgh, replacing two A-plus players, two top-of-their-field players with, B players. So that's going to have a huge effect on Pittsburgh. I mean, the Steelers got a lot of question marks. The Ravens lost a lot of guys to free agency. They brought in Earl Thomas, but how is Earl Thomas going to come back from his knee injury? I reckon he's probably going to come back playing pretty good, but still, you don't have C.J. Mosley. You lost a lot of guys. You're changing over regimes from the legendary Ozzie Newsome to a newer, younger regime. So we're going to see how that affects the team. You got Lamar Jackson coming back for a second year after it looking like he might have been figured out in San Diego last year with that whole offense. And you're going to have to see if he can become a pocket passer, which he's going to have to do to be successful in NFL. And I'm not saying he has to be great at passing in the pocket, but he has to be passable. And he just wasn't last year. And then you have the Bengals, who re-signed Bobby Hart. Yeah, so the Bengals, they didn't hire Hugh Jackson, so that's a good thing. They got rid of Marvin Lewis. They still got A.J. Green and Andy Dalton. I mean, the Bengals, they're the same team. So that leaves the Browns in a spot to where they have clearly the most talented roster in their division. So they just have to perform to that level and win their division. All right, guys. That's going to be all I have to say for this week's episode. Just wanted to let you guys know that the Browns, they're the new kings of the AFC North. Get excited. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button. Tell me down below how many games you think the Browns, with this juiced roster, is going to win this year. I would love to see you guys' predictions. Don't forget to put it down there. Thank you guys for watching again. Hope you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and have a great night.